Unlike the rest of the city, the setting sun didn't seem to reflect off of the light golden bricks of the holiest place I'd ever seen. Instead, the wall seemed to absorb the sun's rays and light itself from within. It's hard to separate now what actually happened, compared to how my mind seems to picture it. Standing there, my mind was going in 1,000 different directions at once, but each path of my imagination seemed to reach towards the same ending, the same conclusion, the same finishing line: the Western Wall. When I stood there was nothing I would change. The suit-clad men walking down arm in arm, singing the most spiritual songs I had ever heard, and the hurried davening of the Orthodox men, their prayers lifting and becoming part of the sky as their heads lightly pressed against the ancient bricks. Women dance and sing in lively circles. Men lift their fellow men onto their shoulders in unrestrained happiness. The articles I read must be wrong. How can a place so perfect be so fatally flawed? Women unable to pray in the ways they choose, and Jews from all over the world being questioned of their right to the common land we all share as home. The magnitude of the problems my holy place faces hurt. It's like the moment when you're a child and suddenly realize that your parents don't have all the answers. It chips away at pieces of my memories, the ones that were stored in a dreamlike place. They were untouched, ready to use on bad dreams and teary pillows. The Western Wall has seemingly descended from its revered place in the heavens, now a godly object confined by the conventions and workings of its new home. The realities of this site do not match the ideal fantasy. The excitement, the unhindered glee all expressed by those lucky enough to be there is tainted by the societal flaws and caveats that exist. The dominant impressions that exist begin first with feelings of holiness and spirituality, and then lead into a feeling of disappointment as the narrator realizes the true nature of the Western Wall.
This uses figurative language such as personification, and it promotes the dominant impression of holiness and spirituality, which has not yet been tainted. This shows as the narrator starts to realize the reality and the societal norms of the wall, and their perfect image of it starts to fade. This shows the vantage point, and it gives the reader a sense of the importance and significance of this moment. This shows the dominant impression of holiness and spirituality, but it also sets up the later dominant impression of disappointment that soon arrives. This line really emphasizes the importance of the dominant impression. It displays the most holiness, the most spirituality. It really exemplifies everything that the narrator was feeling at the time. At this point, all the men and women at the wall are helping each other both physically and spiritually, religiously, and it's a really beautiful moment in the sense that everyone is viewed as together, as equals. But then it leads into the line, "How can a place so perfect be so fatally flawed?" which shows the downfall of the dominant impression and really emphasizes the disappointment that is soon to come. This figurative language really makes the feeling of devastation more relatable for the reader. The use of the word untouched shows a sort of purity that seems to be perceived about the Western Wall. However, this shows how the purity that is perceived isn't quite as pure as you may think. This really highlights the site's importance to the narrator and how it feels to really, learn that everything you thought was holy and perfect is not quite what you thought it was. There's more to it that you might not like. This displays the new dominant impression, and the use of the word fantasy shows how ideal yet unrealistic the first visit was. This really solidifies and finalizes the dominant impression and shows how society and the social norms, whether they be right or wrong, have influenced the holy place of the Western Wall and brought it from simply a holy religious object to one also run by societal norms. The word tainted creates imagery and sends the message to the reader that even though the Western Wall is a beautiful holy place, it's not all it's made up to be.